The moment Ava Sterling realized she had spent 15 years building an empire no one actually loved her for, she was standing in a hotel ballroom watching a man in a wrinkled shirt walk out on her mid-sentence to read his daughter a bedtime story over the phone. She had closed billion-dollar deals with less effort than it took to get his attention for 5 minutes. And for the first time in her perfectly controlled life, she wanted something she could not have. Not because it was expensive, but because it was real. If you want to know what happened when the woman who had everything finally met the man who wanted nothing she could offer, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Ava Sterling did not do uncertainty. She built her first app at 19, sold it at 23, and turned the profits into a logistics software empire that now employed 400 people across 3 states. She had been written up in Forbes twice, profiled in Business Insider, and interviewed on a panel at South by Southwest, where a journalist called her the most disciplined founder under 35. Ava liked that word, disciplined. It meant she did not make mistakes other people made. She did not date employees. She did not overspend. She did not trust people who smiled too much or talked too little. She did not waste time, and she definitely did not get flustered at charity galas. But tonight, standing near the bar at the Chicago Tech and Innovation Foundation's annual fundraiser, Ava was flustered. The man in front of her, Ethan Blake, according to his name tag, was not behaving like anyone else in the room. He was not trying to impress her. He was not angling for a job or a partnership or even a LinkedIn connection. He was just standing there, hands in his pockets, looking at her like she was a person he had been introduced to at a cookout, not the CEO of Sterling Systems. "So you're saying you don't think automation is the future?" Ava said, trying to keep the edge out of her voice. "I didn't say that." Ethan's tone was calm, almost amused. "I said automation without human oversight is just expensive chaos. Your system's probably great, but if you're not building in safeguards for the people who actually use it, you're going to hit a wall in about 18 months. Ava bristled. "We have safeguards." "You have customer support tickets. That's not the same thing." She opened her mouth to argue, but Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, and looked back at her with an apologetic half-smile. "Sorry," he said. "I have to take this. We're in the middle of a conversation." "I know, but it's my daughter." He did not wait for permission. He just stepped away, phone already to his ear, voice dropping into something softer. "Hey, Bug, I know, I'm sorry I'm not there yet. You want me to stay on while you brush your teeth?" Ava stood there, drink in hand, watching him walk toward the hallway like she had just been dismissed from her own conversation. Around her, tech executives and venture capitalists buzzed and laughed and networked with the kind of tireless energy that came from knowing every conversation could lead to something bigger. But Ethan Blake was on the phone with his kid, asking her if she remembered to floss. Ava felt something strange twist in her chest. Not anger, exactly. Not even irritation. It was closer to disbelief. She had never been walked away from before. Quote. The gala had started 3 hours earlier with speeches, expensive wine, and a silent auction that raised $2 million for STEM education programs across the city. Ava had been invited as a keynote speaker, and she had delivered exactly the kind of talk people expected from her. Sharp, data-driven, optimistic without being naive. She talked about the future of supply chain technology, about machine learning and predictive analytics, about building systems that did not just work, but learned. She got a standing ovation. Afterward, she had been cornered by the usual crowd, investors who wanted updates, competitors who wanted intel, and at least 3 people who handed her business cards and said they would love to grab coffee sometime. Ava smiled, nodded, and made no promises. She was good at this. She had been doing it for years. But then her friend Lauren, a VP at a rival logistics firm, had grabbed her by the elbow and pulled her toward the bar. "You need to meet someone," Lauren said, grinning in that way that meant she was up to something. "I don't need to meet anyone. You need to meet this one. Trust me." Lauren dragged her across the room to where a man in a navy blazer and a shirt that looked like it had been ironed once, maybe a week ago, was standing by himself, nursing a glass of water. "Ethan," Lauren said brightly, "this is Ava Sterling. Ava, this is Ethan Blake. He's one of our analysts, and he's way too smart to still be in that job, but he refuses to let me promote him." Ethan looked up, and Ava got her first clear look at him. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that needed a trim, and the kind of face that would have been unremarkable except for his eyes, which were sharp and watchful in a way that made her think he noticed more than he said. He was not handsome in the way men at these events usually were. No expensive watch, no perfectly tailored suit, no practiced smile. He just looked tired, but not in a defeated way. More like someone who had been awake a long time and was still paying attention. "Nice to meet you," Ethan said. His handshake was firm but brief. "Lauren says you're good at what you do," Ava said. "Lauren exaggerates." "No, I don't," Lauren said, laughing. "He's brilliant. He just doesn't care about the right things." "Like what?" Ava asked. "Like career advancement," Lauren said. "I've offered him 3 promotions in 2 years. He turns me down every time." Ava looked at Ethan with new interest. "Why?" Ethan shrugged. "The job I have works for me." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." Lauren's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it with a grimace. "I have to deal with this. You two behave." She disappeared into the crowd, leaving Ava alone with a man who clearly did not want to be there. "So," Ava said, "you really turned down 3 promotions?" 4, technically. "Why?" "Because promotions come with expectations. Longer hours, more travel. I can't do that." "Why not?" "I have a daughter." Ava paused. She had not expected that. "How old?" 7. "And you're a single parent?" "Widower." The word landed between them like something fragile. Ava did not know what to say. She was good at a lot of things, but sympathy was not one of them. She defaulted to facts. "That must be hard." "It is what it is." "Still, you could hire help. A nanny, maybe. That would give you more flexibility." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, and Ava had the uncomfortable feeling that she had just said something wrong. "I don't want flexibility," he said quietly. "I want to be there." "Right, of course." The conversation should have ended there. Ava should have excused herself, gone back to networking, done what she always did. But instead she heard herself say, "Lauren mentioned you're an analyst. What do you actually do?" "I troubleshoot logistics models, find inefficiencies, fix bottlenecks, that kind of thing." "And you're good at it?" "Good enough." "That's not what Lauren said." "Lauren's biased." Ava smiled despite herself. "You're not great at taking compliments, are you?" "I'm fine with compliments. I just don't think they mean much unless the work backs them up." "Fair." They talked for another 10 minutes, and it was the strangest conversation Ava had had in months. Ethan did not ask her about her company. He did not ask her for advice or favors. He just talked to her like she was a person, not a brand. And when she mentioned a recurring problem Sterling Systems had been having with a supplier in the Midwest, he listened carefully and then said, "Sounds like a scheduling conflict. You're probably batching orders wrong." "We're not batching wrong." "Then your supplier's lying about capacity." Ava frowned. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen it before. If you want, I can look at the data." "You do that?" "Sure." "Send it over?" And that was when his phone had buzzed, when he had walked away mid-conversation to answer his daughter's call. Ava stood there, watching him disappear into the hallway, and felt the strangest mix of frustration and fascination. She did not know what to do with Ethan Blake, but she knew she was going to see him again. Ava did not think about Ethan again until 2 days later, when she was sitting in her corner office staring at a spreadsheet that made no sense. Her head of operations, Daniel, had sent her the quarterly report for their largest supplier, the same one she had mentioned to Ethan at the gala. The numbers were off. Not catastrophically, but enough that Ava's instinct for patterns was screaming at her that something was wrong. "Daniel!" she called through the open door. "Get in here!" Daniel appeared a moment later, tablet in hand. He was 38, efficient, and perpetually anxious in a way that made him very good at his job. "What's up?" "This." Ava tapped the screen. "Midwest Freight. Their delivery windows don't match their capacity reports." "I know. I've been trying to figure it out for 2 weeks." "And?" "And I think they're juggling too many clients. We're not the only ones getting delayed." Ava leaned back in her chair. Ethan Blake said the same thing. Daniel blinked. "Who?" "An analyst. I met him at the gala. He took one look at the problem and guessed it was a scheduling conflict." "He guessed right." Yeah. Ava stared at the screen for another moment, then made a decision. Get me his contact info. Who? Ethan Blake? Yes. Why? Because I want him to look at this. Ava, we have a whole team for this. And they've been working on it for 2 weeks. I want a second opinion. Daniel sighed but pulled out his phone. 5 minutes later, Ava had Ethan's email address. She drafted the message carefully, attaching the relevant files and keeping her tone professional but not cold. Subject: quick favor. Logistics issue. Ethan, we spoke at the gala last week. You mentioned you could take a look at a supplier issue we've been having. Attached are the reports. Let me know if you see anything we're missing. Thanks, Ava Sterling. She hit send before she could overthink it. The reply came back in less than an hour. Subject: quick favor. Logistics issue. Ava, you're batching orders every 2 weeks, but your supplier's scheduling system runs on a weekly cycle. That's your bottleneck. If you shift to weekly orders or negotiate a custom cycle with them, the delays should drop by at least 40%. Let me know if that helps. Ethan Ava read the email 3 times. Then she forwarded it to Daniel with a single line. Test this. By the end of the week, Daniel confirmed Ethan had been right. They renegotiated the delivery schedule with Midwest Freight, and the delays disappeared almost immediately. Ava sat in her office that Friday afternoon, staring at Ethan's email, and thought about how he had solved in 10 minutes what her entire operations team had been wrestling with for 2 weeks. She picked up her phone and typed out a message. You were right. Problem solved. I owe you a coffee. The reply came a few minutes later. You don't owe me anything, but if you want to buy me a coffee anyway, I'm free Saturday morning. Mia has soccer at 10, so I'd have to be done by 9:30. Ava stared at the message. Most people would have suggested lunch, or drinks, or dinner at a place that required a reservation. Ethan Blake wanted coffee at 8 a.m. so he could make it to his daughter's soccer game. Ava typed back, Saturday at 8, send me the address. The coffee shop Ethan suggested was not the kind of place Ava usually went. It was a neighborhood spot in Lincoln Park, tucked between a hardware store and a dry cleaner, with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu that looked like it had been written by a 10-year-old. Ava arrived at 7:55, ordered a black coffee, and sat by the window. Ethan showed up at exactly 8 o'clock, wearing jeans and a Henley shirt that looked like it had survived a lot of laundry cycles. He spotted her, waved, and walked over with an easy, unhurried stride. You're punctual, Ava said. You say that like it's surprising. Most people are late. Most people don't have a 7-year-old who gets furious if you miss kickoff. Ava smiled despite herself. Fair point. Ethan ordered a coffee, black, no sugar, and sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. So, Ava said, you fixed our supplier problem in 10 minutes. It wasn't that complicated. My entire ops team didn't see it. They were too close to it. Sometimes you just need fresh eyes. You're being modest. I'm being honest. Ava took a sip of her coffee. Lauren said you're wasted as an analyst. Lauren says a lot of things. She's not wrong. Ethan shrugged. Maybe, but the job I have works for me. Why? Because of your daughter? Mostly, yeah. You could hire help. I don't want help. I want to be there. You said that at the gala. Because it's true. Ava studied him for a moment. You really don't care about moving up. I care about doing good work. I just don't care about the title that comes with it. That's unusual. Is it? In my world? Yes. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe your world's a little broken. Ava laughed. It came out sharper than she meant it to, but it was genuine. You're probably right. They talked for another 20 minutes, and Ava found herself asking questions she normally would not have asked. She learned that Ethan's wife had died 3 years earlier from an aneurysm. Sudden. No warning. No time to prepare. She learned that Mia had been 4 when it happened, and that Ethan had taken 6 months off work to figure out how to be both parents at once. She learned that he had moved to a smaller apartment closer to Mia's school so she could walk there on her own when she was older, and that he had turned down a job offer in New York because it would have meant uprooting her. She's already lost so much, Ethan said quietly. I'm not going to take away the life she knows too. Ava did not know what to say to that. She had built her entire life around growth, expansion, risk. Ethan had built his around staying put. "That's really admirable," she said finally. "It's not admirable. It's just what you do." At 9:25, Ethan glanced at his watch and stood up. "I should go," he said. "Soccer starts in half an hour, and Mia gets anxious if I'm late." "Right, of course." He hesitated for a moment, then said, "This was nice. Thanks for the coffee. Thank you for fixing my logistics nightmare." "Any time." He walked out, and Ava sat there for another 10 minutes, staring at her empty cup. She did not understand Ethan Blake, but she wanted to. Dead. Over the next 2 months, Ava kept finding reasons to reach out to Ethan. It started with small questions, logistical puzzles her team was stuck on, supplier conflicts, scheduling inefficiencies. Every time, Ethan would respond within a few hours with a clear, concise answer that worked. He never asked for anything in return. He never tried to leverage the connection. He just helped. And every time, Ava felt the same strange pull. She told herself it was professional curiosity. Ethan was smart, and she respected smart people. But she knew it was more than that. She started suggesting coffee every few weeks, always framing it as a thank you or a follow-up. Ethan always said yes, but he always set a time limit. "I've got to pick up Mia by 3. I promised her we'd go to the library after school. She has a piano recital at 6. Ava started to notice the rhythm of his life. Everything revolved around Mia, not in a way that felt suffocating or performative, but in a way that was just steady, deliberate, like he had made a choice about what mattered, and he was not going to apologize for it. It fascinated her. One afternoon in late November, Ava was sitting in a strategy meeting with her executive team when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and saw a message from Ethan. "Hey, random question. Mia's school is doing a winter fundraiser and they need silent auction donations. Any chance Sterling Systems would want to contribute something? No pressure if not." Ava stared at the message. It was the first time Ethan had ever asked her for anything. She typed back immediately. "Absolutely. What do they need?" The reply came a minute later. "Maybe a tech package? Tablet, headphones, something like that? The kids get really excited about that stuff." Ava forwarded the message to her assistant with instructions to put together the nicest student tech package they could find and have it delivered to Mia's school by the end of the week. 2 days later, Ethan sent her a photo. It was Mia, grinning in front of a display table at the school fundraiser, holding a sign that said "Grand Prize" in glittery letters. The tablet and headphones were sitting on the table behind her. "She's been talking about this all day. Thank you." Ava saved the photo. She did not know why. She just did. The breaking point came in early December. Ava's company was in the middle of a crisis. A major client, one of their top 3 accounts, was threatening to pull their contract because of a system failure that had caused a massive delivery backlog. Ava's entire team was in panic mode, working 18-hour days to fix the problem. Ava herself had not slept more than 4 hours a night in over a week. On the 5th day of the crisis, she was sitting in her office at 10 p.m., staring at a screen full of error logs, when her phone rang. It was Ethan. "Hey," he said, "I heard about the client issue." "How?" "Lauren mentioned it. She said it's bad." Ava closed her eyes. "It's bad. Can I help?" "Ethan, it's late. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. Can I help?" Ava hesitated. Then she said, "Yes. Send me everything. I'll look at it tonight." "You have Mia. She's asleep. Send it." Ava sent the files. At 2 a.m., Ethan called her back. "It's not a system failure," he said. "It's a data formatting issue. Your client's ERP system doesn't match your export format. You've been sending them files they can't read." Ava sat up straight. "Are you sure?" "Positive. If you reformat the exports and resend the data, the backlog should clear in about 6 hours." "Ethan, if you're right, I'm right." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen it before. Trust me." Ava did not hesitate. "Okay, I'll have my team start reformatting now." "Good. Let me know how it goes." He hung up. By 8 a.m., the backlog was clearing. By noon, the client had called to confirm the issue was resolved. By the end of the day, the contract was saved. Ava sat in her office that evening, staring at her phone, and felt something crack open inside her. Ethan Blake had saved her company. And he had done it at 2 a.m. after putting his daughter to bed without asking for anything in return. She picked up her phone and called him. "Hey," he said, sounding slightly out of breath. "Sorry, I'm at Mia's school concert. Can I call you back?" "No, Thank you. You saved us." "You're welcome." "I mean it, Ethan. We would have lost that client without you." "I'm glad it worked out." There was a pause. In the background, Ava could hear the faint sound of children singing. "I should go," Ethan said. "Mia's up next." "Right. Of course. Go." He hung up. Ava sat there in the silence of her office, surrounded by awards and accolades and evidence of a life spent building something impressive, and realized she had never felt more alone. The invitation came 3 days later. Ava was reviewing budget projections when her phone lit up with a text from Ethan. "Mia wants to know if you'd like to come to her piano recital on Saturday. No pressure. She just remembered you donated the fundraiser prize and decided you're basically a celebrity now." Ava stared at the message for a full minute. She had been to product launches, investor dinners, and board retreats. She had given keynote speeches in front of thousands of people. But she had never been invited to a 7-year-old's piano recital. She typed back, "What time?" 2 p.m. at her school. Fair warning, it's going to be long and most of the kids can't actually play yet. But Mia's pretty excited about it. Ava hesitated. She had a million reasons to say no. Saturday was supposed to be her catch-up day. She had emails to answer, reports to review, a presentation to finalize for Monday's meeting. But instead, she found herself typing, "I'll be there." When Saturday came, Ava spent an embarrassing amount of time deciding what to wear. She finally settled on dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, hoping it struck the right balance between approachable and put together. She arrived at the school 10 minutes early and found herself standing in a hallway decorated with construction paper snowflakes and student artwork, feeling completely out of place. The recital was held in the gymnasium, which had been set up with rows of folding chairs facing a small stage. Parents and grandparents filled the seats, clutching phones and cameras. Ava spotted Ethan near the front, saving a seat. He waved her over. "You made it," he said, standing up to let her slide past him. "I said I would." "I know, I just wasn't sure you'd actually show." "Why not?" Ethan shrugged. "You're busy. I figured something would come up." Ava did not tell him that something had come up. 3 things, actually. She had ignored all of them. She sat down, and Ethan handed her a program printed on bright yellow paper. Mia's name was listed halfway down, next to the title, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." "She's been practicing non-stop," Ethan said quietly. "I've heard that song about 200 times this week." "Is she nervous?" "Terrified, but she won't admit it." The recital started a few minutes later, and Ethan had not been exaggerating. Most of the kids were beginners, and their performances ranged from hesitant to borderline chaotic. But the parents clapped enthusiastically after every single one, and Ava found herself smiling despite the off-key notes and missed beats. When Mia's turn came, Ava felt Ethan go still beside her. Mia walked onto the stage in a green dress, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked impossibly small standing next to the piano. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. For a moment, she just sat there, frozen. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his jaw tight. Then Mia started playing. It was not perfect. She stumbled over one of the transitions and had to start the phrase again. But she kept going, her small hands moving carefully across the keys, and when she finished, the applause was loud and genuine. Mia stood up, took a quick, awkward bow, and hurried off stage. Ethan exhaled. "She did great," Ava said. "She messed up the 3rd line." No one cared. She cared. After the recital, they found Mia in the hallway, clutching a certificate that said, "Outstanding Performance in Looping Script." Her face lit up when she saw Ethan. "Did you see? I didn't forget any of it." "You were amazing, Bug," Ethan said, crouching down to her level. "I messed up the middle part. Only a little, and you kept going. That's the hard part." Mia grinned, then noticed Ava standing behind him. Her expression shifted to something more cautious. "Hi," Mia said. "Hi," Ava said. "You were really good." "Thanks." Mia hesitated, then added, "Are you the lady who gave us the tablet for the fundraiser?" "I am." "That was cool. Everybody wanted to win it." I'm glad. Mia looked up at Ethan. Can we get pizza now? You said we could get pizza. I said we'd see. That means yes. Ethan sighed, but he was smiling. Fine. Pizza. Mia turned back to Ava. Do you want to come? Ava blinked, caught off guard. Oh, I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding, Ethan said. If you want to come, come. Ava looked at him, then at Mia, who was watching her with an expression that was somehow both hopeful and wary. Okay, Ava said. Sure. The pizza place was a neighborhood joint with red vinyl booths and a jukebox in the corner. Mia ordered pepperoni and spent the first 10 minutes telling Ava everything she knew about piano, which was a mix of actual facts and things she had clearly made up on the spot. Ethan listened with the kind of patient amusement that suggested he had heard most of this before. And if you play the keys backwards, it sounds like you're going back in time, Mia said seriously. That's not true, Ethan said. It could be true. It's not. You don't know everything, Dad. Ethan looked at Ava. See what I deal with? Ava laughed. It felt strange sitting in a booth eating pizza with a man she barely knew and his 7-year-old daughter, but it also felt easier than most of the dinners she had been to in the past year. There was no posturing, no agenda, just pizza and bad jokes and a kid who kept stealing pieces of pepperoni off her dad's plate. At one point, Mia excused herself to go look at the jukebox, and Ethan leaned back in the booth, watching her. She likes you, he said quietly. How can you tell? She doesn't talk this much around new people. Usually she just stares at them until they get uncomfortable and leave. Ava smiled. Good to know I passed the test. You did. There was a pause, and then Ethan said, Thanks for coming today. It meant a lot to her. And to me. I'm glad I came. Yeah? Yeah. Ethan looked at her for a moment, and Ava had the strange feeling that he was trying to figure something out. But before he could say anything, Mia came bounding back to the table, announcing that she had picked a song and it was going to be the best one ever. It was not. It was a country ballad from the 90s that no one in the restaurant wanted to hear. But Mia sang along anyway, off-key and too loud, and Ethan did not tell her to stop. Ava watched them and felt something shift inside her that she could not quite name. She had spent 15 years building a life that looked perfect from the outside. But sitting in that booth, listening to a 7-year-old butcher a Garth Brooks song, she realized she had no idea what perfect actually felt like. This was close, though. Over the next few weeks, Ava found herself getting pulled deeper into Ethan and Mia's life, almost without realizing it was happening. It started small. Ethan mentioned that Mia had a school project on renewable energy, and Ava offered to send over some resources. That turned into a phone call, which turned into Ava stopping by their apartment one evening with a book on solar power and a model wind turbine kit she had ordered online. Mia's face had lit up when she saw it. This is so cool! Dad, look! Ethan had looked at Ava with an expression she could not quite read. You didn't have to do this. I know, I wanted to. They had spent the next hour sitting on the living room floor, assembling the turbine while Mia peppered Ava with questions about how electricity worked. Ethan mostly stayed quiet, stepping in only when Mia got frustrated with a piece that would not fit. When they finally got it working, Mia insisted on putting it in the window so it would catch the breeze. It's perfect, Mia declared. I'm going to get an A for sure. You're going to get an A because you did the work, Ethan said, and because Ava helped. Ava helped, but you're the one who built it. Mia had beamed at that, and Ava felt an unfamiliar warmth settle in her chest. After that, the invitations kept coming. Mia's soccer game, a trip to the science museum, a movie on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Each time, Ava told herself she was just being friendly, returning the favor for all the times Ethan had helped her with work. But she knew that was not the whole truth. The truth was, she liked being around them. She liked the way Mia asked 1,000 questions and never seemed embarrassed by not knowing the answers. She liked the way Ethan was patient, even when Mia was being difficult, the way he made her laugh without trying, the way he treated Ava like a person instead of a CEO. She liked feeling like she was part of something that mattered. But liking it did not mean she knew what to do with it. One evening in mid-January, Ava was working late in her office when Lauren called. So, Lauren said without preamble, are you dating Ethan Blake? Ava nearly dropped her phone. What? No, why would you think that? Because I saw you at Mia's soccer game last weekend. And because you've been asking me about him every time we talk. I have not. You literally asked me last week if he was seeing anyone. Ava closed her eyes. That was a casual question. Ava, nothing you do is casual. There was a long pause. I'm not dating him, Ava said finally. We're just friends. Do you want to be more than friends? I don't know. That's not a no. Lauren, look, I'm not judging. Ethan's a good guy. Really good. But he's also complicated. He's got Mia, and he's still figuring out how to be okay after losing his wife. If you're going to get involved, you need to be sure you're ready for that. I'm not getting involved. Then why are you going to his kids' soccer games? Ava did not have an answer for that. After she hung up, she sat in her office for a long time, staring at the city lights outside her window. She thought about the way Ethan looked at Mia, the way he showed up for every small moment in her life, the way he had built something steady and real out of grief and loss. She thought about the way she felt when she was with them, like she was part of something bigger than herself, something that did not revolve around metrics or results, or proving she was the smartest person in the room. She thought about how terrifying that was. The next time Ava saw Ethan, it was because she needed his help again. Sterling Systems had landed a new client, a mid-sized retail chain that wanted to overhaul their entire distribution network. It was a huge opportunity, but the logistics were a nightmare. Ava's team had been working on the proposal for 3 weeks, and they were still stuck on the pricing model. Ava called Ethan on a Tuesday afternoon. I need your brain, she said. Hello to you too. Sorry. Hi, how are you? I need your brain. Ethan laughed. What's the problem? Ava explained the situation, and Ethan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Can you send me the proposal? He asked. It's 40 pages. That's fine. I'll look at it tonight. Ethan, you don't have to. I know. Send it anyway. Ava sent the file, and the next morning, Ethan called her back. Your pricing model's wrong, he said. Excuse me? You're calculating costs based on volume, but you should be calculating based on delivery density. Their stores are clustered in 3 regions. If you optimize the routes by region instead of treating them as individual stops, you can cut costs by almost 30%. Ava grabbed a pen. Say that again. Ethan walked her through the math, and by the time he was finished, Ava was staring at her notes in disbelief. This is brilliant, she said. It's just logistics. Ethan, this could close the deal. Good. Let me know how it goes. He hung up, and Ava sat there for a moment, feeling something uncomfortably close to awe. She revised the proposal using Ethan's model, and 2 weeks later, the client signed. Ava's board was thrilled. Her CFO called it the best deal they had closed in 3 years. At the celebration dinner, Daniel raised his glass and said, "To Ava, for pulling off another miracle." Ava smiled and clinked glasses with everyone at the table. But the whole time, she was thinking about Ethan, sitting at home with Mia, probably helping her with homework or making dinner, completely unaware that he had just saved her company again. She left the dinner early and called him from her car. Hey, he said. What's up? We got the deal. That's great. Congrats. Ethan, we got it because of you. You got it because you did the work. I did the work, but you gave me the answer. I gave you a suggestion. You're the one who made it happen. Ava leaned her head back against the seat. Why do you do that? Do what? Act like what you do doesn't matter. There was a pause. It's not that it doesn't matter, Ethan said quietly. It's that I don't need credit for it. You needed help. I helped, that's all. That's not all. Ava's, I'm serious. You've saved my company twice now, and you won't even let me thank you properly. You just did. I want to do more than thank you. I want to... She stopped, not sure what she was trying to say. You want to what? Ava closed her eyes. I don't know. There was another pause, longer this time. Ava, Ethan said, and his voice was gentler than she had ever heard it. You don't owe me anything, okay? I like helping you. That's enough. But it did not feel like enough. Not to Ava. That weekend, Ava made a decision. She called Ethan and asked if she could take him and Mia to dinner. Not pizza. Somewhere nice. Her treat. You really don't have to do that, Ethan said. I know. I want to. Ava, please. He sighed. Okay, but nowhere fancy. Mia hates fancy. They ended up at a steakhouse that was upscale but not stuffy, with a kid's menu and crayons on the table. Mia ordered mac and cheese and spent the first 15 minutes drawing a picture of what she said was a dragon, but looked more like a lopsided dog. Ethan ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, and Ava had to stop herself from pointing out that she was paying. The conversation was easy at first. Mia talked about school, about her best friend Emma, who was moving to Michigan, about the fact that her teacher had said she was getting better at reading. Ethan added details here and there, gently correcting Mia when she exaggerated or got the facts wrong. But as the meal went on, Ava noticed Ethan getting quieter. He was not withdrawn exactly, but there was something subdued about him, like he was somewhere else in his head. After Mia excused herself to go to the bathroom, Ava leaned forward. "You okay?" she asked. Ethan looked up, startled. "Yeah, sorry, just thinking." "About what?" He hesitated, then said, "About how strange this is." "Strange how?" "I don't know, it's just—" He stopped, rubbing the back of his neck. "I haven't done this in a long time. Gone out to dinner with someone who wasn't family. It feels weird." Ava's chest tightened. "Do you want to leave?" "No, that's not what I mean." He looked at her, and his expression was hard to read. "I like this, that's what's weird. I didn't think I'd like it." "Why not?" "Because it's easier not to." Ava did not know what to say to that. Before she could figure it out, Mia came back, announcing that the bathroom had fancy soap and Ava had to come see it. Ava let herself be dragged away, and by the time they came back, Ethan had pulled himself together. But Ava could not stop thinking about what he had said. It's easier not to. She understood that. She had been living by that same rule for years. A few days later, Ava's mother called. "I saw your interview in Business Insider," her mother said. "Very impressive." "Thanks, Mom." "Your father and I are hosting a dinner next month. A few colleagues, some potential investors. I'd like you to come." Ava sighed. Her parents' dinners were exhausting. 3 hours of forced conversation with people who wanted something from her. "I'll check my calendar." "You should bring someone." "I'm fine on my own." "Ava, you're 34 years old. It wouldn't kill you to date." "I'm busy." "You're always busy. That's the problem." Ava closed her eyes. "Mom, I don't want to have this conversation." "Fine, but you're coming to the dinner, and you're bringing someone." Her mother hung up before Ava could argue. Ava sat there for a moment, staring at her phone, and then, without thinking it through, she called Ethan. "Hey," he said. "What's up? Do you own a suit?" Yeah." "Why?" "Because I need a favor." She explained the dinner, and Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "You want me to pretend to be your date?" he said finally. "Not pretend, just come with me, so my mom stops asking questions." "Ava, I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because I'm not good at that stuff. Small talk, networking, all of it. I'll just make it worse." "You won't." "You don't know that." "Ethan, please." There was another pause, and then he sighed. "Fine, but you owe me." "I already owe you." "Now you owe me twice." Ava smiled despite herself. "Deal." The dinner was exactly as terrible as Ava had expected. Her parents' house was in Evanston, a sprawling estate with too many rooms and too much white marble. The guests were the usual crowd: finance executives, venture capitalists, and a few academics her father liked to impress. Ava's mother greeted them at the door, her eyes immediately locking onto Ethan. "And who is this?" she asked, her smile sharp. "This is Ethan Blake," Ava said. "Ethan, this is my mother, Caroline." Ethan shook her hand. "Nice to meet you." Caroline's gaze swept over him, taking in the suit that fit but was not tailored, the lack of a designer watch, the absence of any visible status markers. Ava could see her mother calculating, and she hated it. "Ethan's an analyst," Ava said before her mother could ask. "He's been helping me with some logistics consulting." "How lovely," Caroline said, in a tone that meant the opposite. The dinner was worse. Ava's father dominated the conversation, holding court about markets and investments and policy changes. Ethan sat next to Ava, mostly quiet, answering questions when asked, but not volunteering much. Ava could feel her mother watching them, and she knew what her mother was thinking. "He's not good enough for you." After dessert, Caroline pulled Ava aside. He seems nice, her mother said. He is. But Ava, really? An analyst? What's wrong with being an analyst? Nothing. If you're 25 and just starting out, but you're a CEO, you should be with someone who matches your level. Ava felt her jaw tighten. Ethan is brilliant. He's helped me close 2 major deals in the last 6 months. Then hire him. Don't date him. I'm not... Ava stopped. It's none of your business, Mom. You're my daughter. Of course it's my business. Ava walked away before she said something she would regret. She found Ethan in the library looking at the bookshelves with his hands in his pockets. Hey, she said. You okay? Yeah, just needed a break. I'm sorry. My mom can be... It's fine. It's not fine. She was rude. Ethan turned to look at her. Ava, I knew what this was. You don't have to apologize. I shouldn't have brought you. You needed a date. I said yes. It's not a big deal. But it felt like a big deal. Ava could see it in the way Ethan held himself, the careful distance he was keeping. He had done her a favor, and she had dragged him into something uncomfortable and exposing. Do you want to leave? She asked. Do you? Yeah. They left without saying goodbye. In the car, neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Ethan said, Your mom thinks I'm not good enough for you. Ava's hands tightened on the wheel. My mom's wrong. Is she? Yes. Ava, I'm a mid-level analyst who lives in a 2-bedroom apartment and drives a 10-year-old Honda. You're a CEO. She's not wrong. She is wrong because none of that matters. It matters to people like her. I'm not people like her. Ethan looked at her, and for a moment Ava thought he was going to argue, but instead he just said, Okay. They drove in silence the rest of the way. When Ava dropped him off, Ethan paused before getting out of the car. Thanks for tonight, he said. For what? It was awful. For asking me, anyway. He got out and walked toward his building, and Ava sat there in the dark, feeling like she had just broken something fragile without meaning to. She did not hear from Ethan for 3 days. At first, she told herself he was just busy, but by the 3rd day, she knew he was pulling back. She thought about calling him, but every time she picked up her phone, she lost her nerve. On the 4th day, she got a text. Hey, sorry I've been quiet. Mia had a rough week. Can we talk? Ava called him immediately. What happened? She asked. Nothing serious. She just had a meltdown at school. It happens sometimes. Is she okay? Yeah, she's fine now, but it reminded me that I need to be more careful. Careful about what? Ethan was quiet for a moment. About letting people in. Mia gets attached easily. And if something happens, if someone leaves, it's hard for her. Ava felt her stomach drop. Are you saying you don't want me around anymore? No, I'm saying I need to know what this is. Because if it's just casual, if you're just being nice, I need to know that now, before Mia gets more invested. It's not casual. Then what is it? Ava did not have an answer, not one that made sense. So instead she said, Can I come over? Ethan hesitated. Yeah, okay. When Ava arrived at Ethan's apartment, Mia was already asleep. Ethan let her in and they sat on the couch in the dim light of the living room. I don't know what this is, Ava admitted. I've never done this before. Done what? Cared about someone like this. Let someone into my life. I don't know how to do it without screwing it up. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. You're not screwing it up. I feel like I am. You're not. He leaned back, rubbing his face. I'm scared too, Ava. I'm scared because I like you. And I haven't liked anyone since my wife died. And that feels like a betrayal, even though I know it's not. Ava's throat tightened. I don't want to push you into something you're not ready for. You're not pushing me. I'm here because I want to be. But I need to know you're serious. Because if you're not, I can't do this. Not with Mia involved. Ava met his eyes. I'm serious. Are you sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. Ethan studied her face, and then slowly he reached out and took her hand. Okay, he said quietly. Then let's figure it out. Ava squeezed his hand, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was not going to ruin this after all. They did not tell Mia right away. Ethan wanted to wait, to make sure this thing between them was real before pulling his daughter into it. Ava understood that, even though part of her wanted to shout it from the rooftops. She had never felt this way before, like she was walking around with a secret that made everything brighter and scarier at the same time. So they kept it quiet. Ava still came over for pizza nights and homework help and weekend trips to the park. But now, when Mia was not looking, Ethan would catch Ava's eye and smile in a way that made her stomach flip. Or he would brush his hand against hers when they were standing side by side. A touch so brief it could have been an accident, except it was not. It was strange learning how to be with someone. Ava had dated before, but it had always been transactional. Dinners with men who wanted to talk about their startups or their portfolios. Relationships that lasted a few months before fizzling out because neither of them cared enough to fight for it. This was different. Ethan did not care about her company or her money or the fact that she had been profiled in 3 major publications. He cared about whether she had eaten lunch, whether she was sleeping enough, whether she was okay. It unnerved her. One night in late February, they were sitting on Ethan's couch after Mia had gone to bed. Ava had her laptop open, answering emails, and Ethan was reading a book. It was quiet and ordinary, and Ava kept catching herself glancing over at him, thinking about how easy this felt. "You're staring," Ethan said without looking up. "I'm not." "You are." Ava closed her laptop. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About how weird this is." "Weird bad or weird good?" "I don't know yet." Ethan set his book down and turned to look at her. "You can tell me if you're having second thoughts." "I'm not having second thoughts. I'm just—" She stopped, trying to find the right words. "I don't know how to do this. Be with someone. Let someone see me when I'm not put together." "You seem pretty put together to me." "That's because I'm good at faking it." "Ava, you're sitting on my couch in sweatpants, with your hair in a knot on top of your head. You're not faking anything." She looked down at herself and realized he was right. She had not even thought about what she was wearing before she came over. A year ago, that would have been unthinkable. "See?" Ethan said gently. "You're doing fine." "I don't feel like I'm doing fine." "That's because you think everything has to be perfect. It doesn't." "Easy for you to say." "It's not easy for me." "You think I'm not scared? I haven't been with anyone since Sarah died. I don't know what I'm doing either." Ava looked at him, and for the first time she saw the fear underneath the calm exterior. It made her feel less alone. "So what do we do?" she asked. "We figure it out as we go. That's all anyone does." Ava leaned her head against his shoulder, and Ethan put his arm around her. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, just being. It was the most at peace Ava had felt in years. The problem started in March. Sterling Systems was in the middle of negotiating a partnership with a logistics firm in California, and the deal was falling apart. The firm's CEO had concerns about integration timelines, and Ava's team was scrambling to address them. They had been working around the clock for 2 weeks, and everyone was exhausted. Ava was in a conference room with Daniel and 3 other executives when her phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "Hey, I know you're slammed, but I had a thought about the California deal. Can you call me when you get a chance?" Ava glanced at the message, then at the people sitting around the table, all of whom looked like they wanted to set something on fire. "Give me 5 minutes," she said, standing up. She stepped into the hallway and called Ethan. "Hey," he said, "I'm not trying to bug you. Lauren mentioned the California thing, and I thought maybe I could help." "What do you have?" "They're worried about integration timelines, right? That's because they're trying to integrate everything at once. If you phase it in, start with their highest volume routes and expand from there, you can cut the timeline in half and reduce the risk." Ava closed her eyes. It was so obvious she could not believe they had not thought of it. "Ethan, you're a genius." "I'm really not. It's just logistics." "Can I call you back? I need to take this to my team." "Yeah, of course." Ava went back into the conference room and explained Ethan's idea. Daniel looked skeptical at first, but the more she talked, the more his expression shifted. "That could work," he said slowly. "It will work," Ava said. They revised the proposal, presented it to the California firm, and 2 days later, the deal was back on track. At the next executive meeting, Daniel brought it up. "I just want to say, Ava's pivot on the California deal was brilliant. I don't know how she saw it, but it saved us." Ava smiled, but inside she felt uneasy. She had not seen it. Ethan had. After the meeting, her CFO, Richard, pulled her aside. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Where are you getting these ideas? The California deal, the Midwest freight fix, the retail pricing model? They're all coming from the same place, and they're all really good." Ava hesitated. "I've been consulting with someone, an analyst." "Who?" "Ethan Blake. He works for Lauren's firm." Richard frowned. "Does he have access to our proprietary data?" "Some of it. Only what's relevant to the problems I'm asking him to solve." "Ava, that's a liability. If he's working for a competitor, he's not. Lauren's firm doesn't compete with us in the same markets. Still, you need to be careful. If the board finds out you're sharing sensitive information with someone outside the company, they're going to have questions." "I'm not sharing sensitive information. I'm asking for advice." "It's a fine line." Ava felt a flicker of irritation. "Richard, I know what I'm doing." "I'm sure you do. I'm just saying, be careful." He walked away, and Ava stood there, feeling like the ground had shifted underneath her. She did not tell Ethan about the conversation. She told herself it was not important, that Richard was just being paranoid. But the unease stayed with her. A week later, Mia asked Ava if she was her dad's girlfriend. They were sitting at the kitchen table, working on a science worksheet about ecosystems. Ethan had run out to grab takeout, and Ava was helping Mia label a diagram of a food chain. "Ava," Mia said, not looking up from her paper, "are you and my dad dating?" Ava froze. "What?" "Emma said her mom has a boyfriend and he comes over for dinner all the time. You come over for dinner all the time." Ava set down her pencil. "What do you think?" Mia looked up at her, and her expression was serious in the way only a 7-year-old could be. "I think yes, but Dad won't say." "Why do you think he won't say?" "Because he thinks I'll be sad." "Would you be sad?" Mia chewed on the end of her pencil. "I don't know. Maybe. My mom used to come to dinner all the time, too." Ava's chest tightened. "I'm not trying to replace your mom, Mia." "I know, but it's still weird." "What's weird about it?" "That you're here and she's not." Ava did not know what to say to that. She reached over and took Mia's hand. "It's okay to feel weird about it," she said. "You don't have to pretend you're fine if you're not." Mia looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." When Ethan came back with the food, Mia did not say anything, but later, after Mia had gone to bed, Ethan asked Ava what they had talked about. "She asked if we were dating," Ava said. Ethan went still. "What did you say?" "I asked her what she thought." "And?" "She said yes, and that it was weird." Ethan rubbed his face. "I was going to tell her. I just didn't know how." "She already knew, Ethan." "I know, He stopped. "I don't want her to feel like I'm moving on from Sarah." "Are you?" "I don't know, maybe. And that makes me feel like the worst person alive." Ava moved closer to him. "You're not a bad person for wanting to be happy again." "It doesn't feel like that." "I know." They sat in silence for a while, and then Ethan said, "Did she seem okay? About us?" "I think so, but she's processing. Give her time." "Yeah, okay." But Ava could see the worry in his eyes, and she knew this was going to be harder than either of them had expected. In April, Ava's board called an emergency meeting. She walked into the conference room to find all 8 board members waiting, along with Richard and the company's general counsel. The atmosphere was tense. "What's going on?" Ava asked, sitting down. Richard slid a folder across the table. "We need to talk about your relationship with Ethan Blake." Ava felt her stomach drop. "Excuse me?" One of the board members raised concerns about the fact that you've been consulting with an outside analyst on multiple high-stakes deals. There's a question of conflict of interest. "There's no conflict of interest. Ethan doesn't work for a competitor." "He works for a firm that could become a competitor," one of the board members said. "And you've been giving him access to proprietary data." "I've been asking him for advice." "That's not the same thing." "Ava, you're personally involved with him," Richard said. "That changes the dynamic." Ava's jaw tightened. "Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that your judgment may be compromised." "My judgment is not compromised." "Then why have you been relying on him for critical decisions?" "Because he's good at what he does. Better than anyone on my team." "Then hire him. Make it official. But you can't keep operating in this gray area." Ava looked around this table. Every face was serious, skeptical. She realized with a sinking feeling that they had already made up their minds. "Are you asking me to stop seeing him?" she said. "We're asking you to be careful," the general counsel said. "If this relationship affects your ability to lead this company, the board has a responsibility to intervene. It's not affecting my ability to lead. We hope not, but we'll be watching." The meeting ended and Ava walked back to her office feeling like she had been punched in the stomach. She did not tell Ethan about the meeting, not right away. She told herself she was protecting him, but the truth was she did not know how to explain it. How could she tell him that the people she worked with thought he was a liability? That they saw him as a threat instead of the person who had saved her company more times than she could count? But the secrecy gnawed at her. She started pulling back without meaning to. She canceled plans. She kept conversations short. She told herself it was just because she was busy, but she knew it was more than that. She was scared. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. One night in late April, he called her after Mia had gone to bed. "You've been distant," he said. "I've been busy." "Ava, don't do that. Don't lie to me." She closed her eyes. "I'm not lying." "Then what's going on?" "Nothing." "Bullshit." The word landed hard. Ethan never swore. "I'm sorry," Ava said quietly. There's a lot happening at work right now." "Is it about me?" "No." "Are you sure?" Ava did not answer. "Ava, if something's wrong, you need to tell me. I can't help if I don't know what's going on." "You can't help with this." "Why not?" "Because you're part of the problem." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "What does that mean?" Ethan said finally. Ava took a breath. "My board thinks I'm compromised. Because of you. They think I'm relying on you too much, and it's affecting my judgment." "Are you?" "No, but they don't believe me." "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Ava, are you breaking up with me?" "No, I need some space to figure this out." "Space," Ethan repeated, and his voice was flat. "Okay." "Ethan, no, I get it. You need space. Fine." He hung up. Ava sat there in the dark, staring at her phone, and felt the first crack in the foundation of the life she had been trying to build. For 2 weeks, Ava and Ethan did not speak. Ava threw herself into work, putting in 16-hour days and avoiding anything that reminded her of him. She told herself she was doing the right thing, that she needed to prove to her board that she could lead without outside help, that she needed to show them her judgment was sound. But every night she went home to an empty apartment and felt the weight of what she had lost. Mia noticed too. She texted Ava one afternoon, a message that was misspelled and a little hard to read but clear enough. "Are you mad at my dad?" Ava stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "No, sweetie, I'm not mad. I'm just busy with work." "He misses you?" Ava's throat tightened. "I miss him too. Then come over." Ava did not know how to explain to a 7-year-old that it was not that simple, so she did not respond. That night, Ethan called. "You can't text my kid and then ignore her," he said, and his voice was sharp. "I didn't ignore her. I told her I was busy." "She's 7, Ava. She doesn't understand what that means. She just knows you disappeared." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt her." "But you did." Ava closed her eyes. "I know." There was a long pause. "Ava, I don't know what you want from me," Ethan said, and now he just sounded tired. "You said you were serious. You said you wanted to figure this out. But the first time things got hard, you ran. That's not fair. Isn't it? I'm trying to protect my company. And what about us? What about Mia? Do we get any protection or are we just collateral damage?" "You're not collateral damage." "Then prove it." Ava did not know how. The next morning, Ava woke up to an email from Richard. "The board wants a meeting. They're concerned about the drop in strategic output over the past 2 weeks. Call me." Ava stared at the email and something inside her snapped. She had spent 2 weeks trying to prove she did not need Ethan, and all she had proven was that she was miserable without him. She picked up her phone and called him. "Hey," he said, and his voice was guarded. "I'm sorry," Ava said. "For what?" "For running. For making you feel like you didn't matter. For being a coward." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Okay. That's it?" Just okay? What do you want me to say, Ava? I want you to tell me I didn't ruin this. I don't know if you did or not. Ethan, I need to think about this, about whether I can do this with you, because I can't keep putting Mia through this. If you're going to leave every time things get hard, I need to know now. I'm not going to leave. You already did. Ava felt tears prick her eyes. I made a mistake. I'm trying to fix it. I know, but I need time. He hung up and Ava sat there, feeling like she had just lost the best thing that had ever happened to her. 3 days later, Ava walked into her board meeting with a plan. She had spent 72 hours thinking about what she wanted, about what mattered, about the life she had built and the life she actually wanted to live. And she had made a decision. I want to address the concerns about Ethan Blake, she said, standing at the head of the table. The board members looked at her, waiting. You're right, Ava continued. I have been consulting with him on critical deals, and yes, I'm personally involved with him. But my judgment is not compromised. If anything, it's clearer than it's ever been. Ethan has helped this company close 3 major deals in 6 months. He's solved problems my team couldn't solve, and he's done it without asking for anything in return. So if you're asking me to choose between him and this job, I'm choosing him. Richard blinked. Ava, I'm not finished. I'm not stepping down. I'm not walking away from this company, but I'm also not going to let you dictate my personal life. If you want to fire me, go ahead. But you're not going to make me choose between doing my job well and being with someone who makes me happy. She sat down, her heart pounding. The room was silent. Finally, one of the board members, an older woman named Margaret, who rarely spoke, leaned forward. Good, she said. It's about time you stood up for something. Ava blinked. What? We've been watching you run yourself into the ground for 5 years. You're brilliant, Ava, but you're also miserable. If this man makes you less miserable, then I say keep him. Richard looked like he wanted to argue, but Margaret cut him off. Hire him, she said. Make it official. Pay him what he's worth. And stop treating your personal life like it's a conflict of interest. Ava stared at her. You're serious? Completely. The rest of the board murmured their agreement, and Ava felt something loosen in her chest. She left the meeting, walked straight to her car, and drove to Ethan's apartment. When he opened the door, she did not give him a chance to speak. I told my board I'm not giving you up, she said. I told them if they want to fire me, they can, but I'm not choosing between you and my job. And I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to compete with my career. You don't. You matter more than any deal or any promotion or any of it. And if you'll give me another chance, I promise I won't run again. Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then he stepped aside and let her in. Okay, he said. Okay. Yeah, okay. Ava felt her eyes sting. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I don't know. Something more than okay. Ethan smiled, just a little. How about this? I missed you, and I'm glad you're here. And if you ever pull that disappearing act again, I'm going to be really annoyed. Ava laughed, and it came out shaky. Deal. Mia appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. Ava? Hey, Bug, Ava said. Mia ran over and hugged her, and Ava hugged her back, and for the first time in 2 weeks, she felt like she could breathe again. Are you staying for dinner? Mia asked. If that's okay. It's okay. Ethan looked at Ava over Mia's head, and the look in his eyes said everything he did not say out loud. They were going to be okay. For a while, things were better, not perfect. Ava had learned by now that perfect was not a thing that existed outside of spreadsheets and marketing brochures, but better. Ethan came to her office twice a week to consult on logistics problems, and Sterling Systems paid him a proper consulting rate. The board stopped questioning her judgment. Mia started asking Ava to help with her homework without prompting, and Ava started leaving work at 6 instead of 9, which felt foreign and uncomfortable until it started to feel normal. She was learning how to live a life that was not just work, but the cracks were still there, even if she could not see them yet. In early May, Ava's parents invited her to their anniversary party. It was a big one, 40 years, and her mother made it clear that attendance was not optional. You're bringing Ethan, I assume, her mother said over the phone. I was planning to, yes. And his daughter? Ava hesitated. I hadn't thought about it. Well, think about it. If you're serious about this man, we should meet the child. Her mother hung up before Ava could respond. That evening, Ava brought it up with Ethan while they were cleaning up after dinner. Mia was in the living room, building something elaborate out of Legos. My parents want to meet Mia, Ava said, scrubbing a pot with more force than necessary. Ethan looked up from the dish he was drying. Do you want them to meet her? I don't know. My mom can be intense. I don't want Mia to feel uncomfortable. Mia can handle intense. But do you think your parents are going to be okay with this? With me and her? They'll have to be. That's not an answer. Ava set the pot down. I don't care what they think. Yes, you do. Okay, fine, I care. But I'm not going to let them make me feel like this is wrong. Like you and Mia are wrong. Ethan studied her for a moment. You know Mia's going to pick up on it if your parents don't like her. They'll like her. You don't sound convinced. Because I'm not, Ava admitted. But I want them to meet her anyway. I want them to see what my life actually looks like now. Okay, Ethan said. Then we'll go. The party was at her parents' house, and it was exactly as overwhelming as Ava had expected. 100 guests, a catered dinner, a string quartet playing in the garden. Ava's mother had gone all out, and the result was elegant and exhausting. Mia clung to Ethan's hand when they arrived, her eyes wide as she took in the chandelier in the foyer and the waiters carrying trays of champagne. This is fancy, Mia whispered. It is, Ethan agreed. Do I have to talk to people? Only if you want to. Ava's mother appeared almost immediately, her smile bright and brittle. Ava, darling, and Ethan, how lovely. Her gaze dropped to Mia. And this must be your daughter. This is Mia, Ethan said. Mia, this is Mrs. Sterling. Mia looked up at Caroline and said nothing. She's shy, Ava said quickly. I'm not shy, Mia said. I just don't know what to say. Caroline's smile tightened. Well, there's food in the dining room. Help yourself. She walked away and Ava felt her stomach twist. That went well, Ethan muttered. She's not good with kids. Yeah, I noticed. They made it through the cocktail hour without incident, but Ava could feel her mother watching them from across the room. When dinner was announced, Ava found that she, Ethan, and Mia had been seated at a table in the far corner, away from the family. Subtle, Ethan said, looking at the seating chart. I'm sorry. It's fine. But it was not fine. Ava could see it in the set of Ethan's jaw, in the way Mia kept glancing around like she was trying to figure out if she was supposed to be there. Halfway through dinner, Ava's father approached their table. He was a tall man with silver hair and the kind of presence that made people sit up straighter when he walked into a room. Ethan, he said, extending his hand. Richard Sterling. Ethan stood and shook his hand. Nice to meet you, sir. And this is your daughter? Mia, yeah. Richard looked at Mia for a moment, then back at Ethan. Ava tells me you've been helping her with some consulting work. I have. That's good. She needs someone who can keep up with her. It was the closest thing to approval Ava had heard from her father in years, and she felt a flicker of hope. But then her father turned to Ava and said, Can I speak with you for a moment? Ava followed him into the hallway, her stomach sinking. He seems like a decent man, her father said. He is. But you need to think about what you're doing here. What do you mean? Ava, you're building a life with a single father. That's a big responsibility. You're taking on a child who's not yours. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're playing house without thinking about the long-term implications. Ava felt her chest tighten. I'm not playing house, Dad. I'm trying to build something real. With a man who has nothing to offer you. He has everything to offer me. Like what? Stability? A future? Ava, he's an analyst. He lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. He can't give you the life you're used to. I don't want the life I'm used to. Her father looked at her like she had just said something incomprehensible. Then what do you want? I want to be happy. You can be happy and successful. I'm trying to be both. Her father sighed. I just don't want you to wake up in 5 years and realize you made a mistake. The only mistake I've made is caring what you think. Ava walked away before he could respond. When she got back to the table, Ethan took one look at her face and said, We're leaving. We haven't even had dessert. I don't care. We're leaving. They collected Mia, who looked relieved, and headed for the door. But before they could make it out, Ava's mother intercepted them. "You're leaving already?" "Yes," Ava said. "Ava, this is your father's and my anniversary. The least you could do is stay." "I stayed. I had dinner. I smiled for photos. I'm done." Her mother's gaze flicked to Ethan and Mia. "Is this because of them?" "No, it's because of you." "Excuse me?" "You've been making us feel unwelcome since we walked in the door. You stuck us at a table in the corner. You barely acknowledged Mia. And Dad just told me I'm making a mistake. He's worried about you. He's worried I'm embarrassing him." Her mother's expression hardened. "Ava, you're being dramatic." "I'm being honest. You're throwing away everything you've worked for." "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing something better." Her mother looked at her for a long moment, and then she said, "If you walk out that door, don't expect me to support this. I'm not asking for your support." Ava turned and walked out, Ethan and Mia following behind her. In the car, no one spoke for a long time. Mia was in the back seat, staring out the window, and Ethan was gripping the steering wheel tight enough that his knuckles were white. "I'm sorry," Ava said finally. "For what?" Ethan asked. "For subjecting you to that." "You didn't subject me to anything. Your parents did." "They're impossible." "Yeah, I got that." "Are you mad?" "I'm not mad. I'm just—" He stopped, exhaling slowly. "I'm tired of people treating me like I'm not good enough for you." "You're more than good enough." "That's not how your parents see it." "I don't care how my parents see it." Ethan glanced at her. "Are you sure about that?" Ava did not answer. The fallout from the party lasted for weeks. Ava's mother called twice, both times to tell Ava she was making a mistake. Her father sent an email with the subject line, "We need to talk," that Ava deleted without reading. Her younger brother, who usually stayed out of family drama, texted her to say their parents were upset and maybe she should apologize. Ava did not apologize, but the weight of it pressed on her. She started second-guessing things that had felt certain a month ago. She started wondering if her parents were right, if she was taking on more than she could handle, if she was being selfish by pulling Mia into her complicated life. Ethan noticed. He always noticed. One night in late May, after Mia had gone to bed, he sat down next to Ava on the couch and said, "You've been somewhere else for the past 2 weeks." "I'm here. Physically, yeah. But you're not present." Ava closed her laptop. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About whether I'm doing the right thing." Ethan went still. "What does that mean?" "It means I don't know if I'm cut out for this, for being part of Mia's life, for dealing with all the complications that come with it." "Where is this coming from?" "My parents." "Your parents are assholes." Ava flinched. Ethan almost never swore. "I'm sorry," he said, softer. "But they are. And you can't let them get in your head." "It's not just them, it's everything. My board, my team, the way people look at us when we're out together, like we don't make sense." "We don't have to make sense to anyone but us." "But what if they're right? What if I'm not good at this? What if I mess Mia up?" Ethan turned to face her fully. "Ava, you're not going to mess her up. You show up for her. You listen to her. You care about her. That's all she needs." "What if it's not enough?" "It is. Trust me." Ava looked at him, and she wanted to believe him, but the fear was louder than the certainty. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "I don't know how to be in a relationship. I don't know how to be a parent, even a part-time one. I don't know how to balance all of it without losing myself." "So you figure it out, one day at a time." "What if I can't?" "Then we'll figure it out together." Ava felt tears prick her eyes. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple, but it's worth it." She leaned into him, and he put his arm around her, and they sat like that for a long time. But the doubts did not go away. A week later, things came to a head. Ava was supposed to pick Mia up from school and take her to soccer practice. It was the first time Ethan had trusted her to do it on her own, and Ava had been nervous all day. But she left work on time, drove to the school, and waited in the pickup line like all the other parents. Mia came out with her backpack and climbed into the car, grinning. "Hi, Ava." "Hey, Bug, how was school?" "Good, we did a science experiment with vinegar and baking soda. It was so cool." They drove to the soccer field, and Ava helped Mia with her cleats and shin guards. Practice went fine. Mia scored a goal during a scrimmage, and Ava cheered so loud that Mia laughed and waved at her. Everything was going perfectly, until it was not. After practice, Ava and Mia stopped at a coffee shop to get a snack. Mia ordered a muffin and hot chocolate, and they sat by the window talking about the scrimmage and Mia's upcoming math test. And then Mia said, out of nowhere, "Do you love my dad?" Ava froze, her coffee cup halfway to her mouth. "What? Do you love him?" Mia repeated, like it was the most natural question in the world. Ava set her cup down carefully. "Why are you asking?" "Because Emma's mom has a boyfriend, and Emma says her mom told her she loves him. So I was wondering if you love my dad." Ava did not know what to say. She and Ethan had not said that to each other yet. They had skirted around it, implied it, but neither of them had actually said the words. "I care about your dad a lot," Ava said finally. "But do you love him?" "Mia, because if you don't, you shouldn't be here." Ava blinked. "What?" Mia's expression was serious, almost fierce. "My mom loved my dad, and he loved her, and then she died, and it was really sad. And I don't want him to be sad again, so if you don't love him, you should leave, before he gets sad." Ava felt like the air had been knocked out of her. "Mia, I'm not going to make your dad sad." "But what if you do?" "I'm going to try really hard not to." "That's not the same as loving him." Ava looked at this 7-year-old girl who was staring at her with eyes that were too old for her age and realized she could not lie. "You're right," Ava said. "It's not the same. And I don't know if what I feel is love yet. I've never felt it before, so I don't know what it's supposed to feel like. But I can tell you this. I think about your dad all the time. I miss him when he's not around. I want to make him happy. And I want to make you happy too. And if that's not love, it's pretty close." Mia considered this for a long moment. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay? Yeah, that's good enough for now." Ava let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. They finished their snacks and drove back to Ethan's apartment. When they walked in, Ethan was in the kitchen making dinner. "How was practice?" he asked. "Good," Mia said. "I scored a goal." "That's great, Bug." Mia disappeared into her room, and Ethan looked at Ava. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, why?" "You look like you just ran a marathon." Ava laughed shakily. "Mia asked me if I love you." Ethan went very still. "What did you say?" "I told her I think about you all the time, and I want to make you happy. And that if that's not love, it's close." Ethan set down the spoon he was holding. "Ava, I know we haven't said it yet, and I'm not saying it now because I want you to say it back. I'm saying it because I think it's true. I think I love you, and that terrifies me. But it's true." Ethan crossed the kitchen in 2 steps and kissed her. It was not their first kiss, but it felt different, more certain, more real. When he pulled back, he said, "I love you too." Ava felt tears sting her eyes. "Yeah? Yeah. Even though I'm a mess?" "Especially because you're a mess." They stood there in the kitchen holding each other, and for the first time in weeks, Ava felt like maybe, just maybe, she was not going to ruin this after all. But the universe had other plans. 2 days later, Ava got a call from her assistant. "Your mother's here," she said. "What?" "Your mother. She's in the lobby. She says she needs to talk to you." Ava closed her eyes. "Send her up." Caroline walked into Ava's office 5 minutes later, looking as polished and unapproachable as ever. "Mom," Ava said, standing up, "what are you doing here?" "I came to talk some sense into you." "I'm not having this conversation." "Ava, listen to me. I know you think you're in love with this man, but you're not thinking clearly. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment." "My emotions are not clouding my judgment. If anything, they're making it clearer." "You're throwing away your future for a man who can't give you what you need." "He gives me everything I need." "He has a child, Ava, a child who is not yours. Do you understand what that means? You'll always be second. You'll always come after her. I don't want to come first. I want to be part of their life. That's the whole point." Her mother shook her head. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but it'll be my regret, not yours." Caroline looked at her for a long moment, and then she said, If you choose him, you're choosing to cut yourself off from this family. Ava felt the words land like a physical blow. Is that a threat? She asked. It's a reality. Your father and I have worked very hard to build a legacy. We expect you to uphold it. And this, she gestured vaguely, this is not it. Then I guess I'm not upholding it. Her mother's expression hardened. Fine, but don't come crying to me when this falls apart. She walked out and Ava sat down at her desk, shaking. She did not cry. She did not call Ethan. She just sat there, staring at the city outside her window, and wondered if loving someone was always this hard. That night, Ava told Ethan what had happened. They were sitting on his couch, Mia asleep in the next room, and Ava's voice was flat and tired as she recounted the conversation. She said, if I choose you, I'm cutting myself off from the family, Ava finished. Ethan was quiet for a long time. Do you believe her? He asked finally. Yeah, I do. And what are you going to do? Ava looked at him. I'm choosing you. Ava, I'm serious. I'm not going to let them bully me into giving up the best thing that's ever happened to me. But it's your family. They stopped being my family the moment they made me choose. Ethan took her hand. Are you sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He pulled her close and Ava let herself lean into him, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her like a blanket. She had made her choice. Now she just had to figure out how to live with it. The next few weeks were strange. Ava stopped taking her mother's calls. She did not respond to her father's emails. She did not go to family events or dinners or any of the obligations she had been fulfilling her entire life. At first it felt like freedom, but then it started to feel like loss. She missed her brother. She missed the familiarity of her parents' house, even if she did not miss her parents. She missed the sense of belonging, however conditional it had been. But every time she thought about reaching out, she remembered the way her mother had looked at Mia, the way her father had dismissed Ethan, the way they had made it clear that their love came with conditions, and she stayed away. Ethan noticed. He did not push, but he noticed. One night in mid-June, he asked, Do you regret it? Regret what? Choosing me over your family. Ava looked at him. No, but I miss them. Is that allowed? Of course it's allowed. It feels hypocritical, like I can't have it both ways. You're not hypocritical, you're human. Ava leaned her head on his shoulder. I wish they could see what I see. What do you see? A life that's messy and imperfect and real. A life that's actually worth living. Ethan kissed the top of her head. Then that's enough. But Ava was not sure it was. By July, Ava had started seeing a therapist. It was Ethan's idea, though he had not framed it that way. They had been sitting on his balcony one evening, watching Mia chase fireflies in the courtyard below, when he said, Have you ever talked to anyone about your family stuff? Like who? I don't know. A professional. Ava had bristled at first. I don't need therapy. I didn't say you needed it. I just think it might help. With what? With all the things you're carrying around that you won't talk to me about. Ava had wanted to argue, but she could not, because he was right. She was carrying things. The weight of her parents' rejection, the fear that she was not good enough for this life she was trying to build, the guilt of choosing herself over the expectations that had been drilled into her since childhood. So she made an appointment. The therapist's name was Dr. Patel, and she had an office in a brick building near Lincoln Park. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a way of asking questions that made Ava feel like she was not being judged, just observed. Tell me why you're here, Dr. Patel said in their first session. I don't really know, Ava admitted. My boyfriend thought it would be a good idea. And what do you think? I think I'm tired of feeling like I'm doing everything wrong. What does wrong feel like? Ava thought about it. Like I'm always disappointing someone. My parents, my board, myself. Like no matter what I choose, it's the wrong choice. And what would the right choice look like? I don't know. That's the problem. Dr. Patel leaned back in her chair. Maybe the problem isn't that you're making the wrong choices. Maybe the problem is that you're expecting yourself to make choices that please everyone, and that's not possible. Ava blinked. So what do I do? You figure out what you actually want, and then you let yourself want it without apologizing. It sounded simple. It was not. Over the next few weeks, Ava started to untangle things she had not realized were tangled. She talked about her parents, about the way love in her family had always been conditional. She talked about work, about how she had built her entire identity around being successful because she did not know how to be anything else. She talked about Ethan and Mia, about how terrifying it was to love people who could leave, even if they did not mean to. "What if I mess this up?" Ava asked one session. "You probably will," Dr. Patel said. "Everyone does. The question is whether you'll let that stop you." "I don't want to hurt them." "Then don't. But also give yourself permission to be imperfect. You're not going to get everything right. No one does. What matters is that you keep showing up." Ava thought about that a lot. Keep showing up. It was the simplest advice she had ever been given, and it was also the hardest to follow. But she tried. In early August, Mia's school sent home a form for emergency contacts. Ethan filled it out at the kitchen table, and when he got to the second contact line, he paused. "Can I put you down?" he asked Ava. Ava looked up from her laptop. "What?" "As an emergency contact for Mia." Ava felt her throat tighten. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I mean, you're here all the time. You pick her up from school half the time anyway. It makes sense." "Ethan, that's a big deal." "I know. That's why I'm asking." Ava looked at Mia, who was sitting on the floor building a Lego castle and humming to herself. She thought about what it meant to be on that form, to be the person the school called if something went wrong, to be responsible for this child who was not hers, but who felt like hers anyway. "Okay," Ava said. "Yeah, put me down." Ethan smiled and something in Ava's chest loosened. A week later, the school called. Ava was in a meeting when her phone rang. She ignored it the first time, but when it rang again 30 seconds later, she excused herself and stepped into the hallway. "Hello? Hi, is this Ava Sterling?" "Yes?" "This is Nurse Thompson from Lincoln Elementary. I have Mia Blake here. She's okay, but she fell during recess and we think she might have sprained her wrist. Her dad's not answering his phone, so we're calling you." Ava's heart lurched. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. She grabbed her keys, told her assistant to reschedule the meeting, and drove to the school faster than she probably should have. When she got there, Mia was sitting in the nurse's office with an ice pack on her wrist, looking small and miserable. "Hey, Bug," Ava said, crouching down in front of her. "How are you feeling?" "It hurts," Mia said, and her voice was shaky. "I know. We're going to get it checked out, okay?" "Where's my dad?" "He's probably in a meeting. His phone's off. But I'm here." Mia nodded, and then, to Ava's surprise, she leaned forward and put her head on Ava's shoulder. Ava wrapped her arms around her, careful not to jostle her wrist, and felt something shift inside her. This was real. This was hers. Not in the way ownership worked, but in the way love did. They went to urgent care where an X-ray confirmed it was just a sprain. The doctor wrapped Mia's wrist and gave her a sling, which Mia immediately decided made her look cool. "Emma's going to be so jealous," Mia said. Ava laughed. "Probably." By the time they got back to Ethan's apartment, it was almost 5. Ethan was already there, pacing in the living room, his phone in his hand. "Where were you?" Ava asked. "Meeting ran long and my phone died. I just saw the messages. Is she okay?" "I'm fine, Dad," Mia said, holding up her sling. "Ava took me to the doctor." Ethan looked at Ava, and the relief in his eyes was so raw it almost hurt. "Thank you," he said. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Later, after Mia had gone to bed, Ethan pulled Ava onto the couch and held her close. "I was terrified," he admitted. "When I saw those messages and couldn't get through, I thought, she's okay." "I know. But you were there. You took care of her." "Of course I did." "Not everyone would." Ava pulled back to look at him. "Ethan, I love her. You know that, right? Not because she's your daughter, but because she's her. And I want to be there for her. For both of you." Ethan's eyes were bright. "I know, and I love you for it." They sat there in the quiet, and Ava realized that this was what she had been looking for her whole life. Not perfection, not control. Just this. Someone to come home to. Someone who trusted her with the things that mattered most. In September, Ava made a decision about work. She called a meeting with her executive team and announced that she was restructuring her role. She would still be CEO, but she was delegating more. hiring a COO to handle day-to-day operations, reducing her travel schedule, building a leadership team she could actually trust instead of trying to do everything herself. "Why now?" Daniel asked. "Because I'm tired," Ava said honestly. "I've been running this company like it's the only thing that matters, and it's not. I have a life outside of this office, and I want to live it." Richard looked skeptical. "Are you sure this isn't about Ethan?" "It's absolutely about Ethan and Mia, and the fact that I don't want to be 70 years old and realize I spent my entire life in meetings." Margaret, the board member who had supported her before, smiled. "Good for you." The restructuring took months. It was messy and uncomfortable, and there were moments when Ava wanted to take it all back and return to the way things had been when she was in control of everything. But she did not. She hired a COO, a sharp woman named Keisha, who had run operations for a tech company in Austin. She started leaving work at 6 instead of 9. She stopped checking her email at midnight, and slowly, painfully, she learned how to let go. It was not easy. Ava was not built for letting go. But she kept showing up. She kept trying. And eventually, it started to feel less like losing control and more like gaining something better. By October, Ava had been living in the margins of Ethan and Mia's life for almost a year. She had been to soccer games and piano recitals and parent-teacher conferences. She had made dinner and helped with homework and read bedtime stories. She had learned that Mia hated broccoli but loved Brussels sprouts, that she was scared of thunderstorms but not spiders, that she cried when she was frustrated and laughed when she was nervous. She had learned how to be part of a family, but she had not moved in. They had not talked about it. It felt too big, too permanent, too much like admitting that this was forever. Until Mia brought it up. They were carving pumpkins on Ethan's balcony, and Mia was elbow-deep in pumpkin guts, complaining loudly about how gross it was. "Why don't you just live here?" Mia asked suddenly. Ava looked up. "What?" "You're here all the time anyway. Why don't you just move in?" Ethan, who had been scooping seeds into a bowl, froze. "Mia," he said carefully, "that's not really something we can just decide right now." "Why not?" "Because it's complicated." "It's not complicated. Ava's here every day. She has a toothbrush in the bathroom. She has clothes in your closet. She's basically already living here. She just goes home to sleep." Ethan looked at Ava, and Ava looked back, and neither of them knew what to say. "Do you want me to move in?" Ava asked Mia. "Yeah, I think it would be cool." "What if it's weird?" "It's already weird. You're always here, but you're also not here. That's weirder." Ava laughed despite herself. "Fair point." That night, after Mia went to bed, Ethan and Ava sat on the couch and talked about it. "She's not wrong," Ethan said. "You are here all the time." "I know, but moving in is different. It's permanent." "Are you scared of permanent?" "Terrified." "Me too." They sat in silence for a moment. "Do you want me to move in?" Ava asked. "Yeah, I do, but only if you want to." "I want to. I'm just scared I'll mess it up." "You won't." "You don't know that." "No, but I know you'll try, and that's enough." Ava looked at him, and she thought about all the things she had been afraid of over the past year. Letting someone in, being vulnerable, choosing something that mattered more than her career. And she realized that the fear was still there. It probably always would be, but it was not louder than the love. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Yeah, let's do it." Ethan smiled, and Ava felt something settle inside her that she had not known was unsettled. She moved in 2 weeks later. It was not a smooth transition. Ava had lived alone for 15 years, and she had her own way of doing things. She liked the apartment cold. Ethan liked it warm. She was a night owl. He was an early riser. She organized everything by category. He just shoved things in drawers. They fought about stupid things. Where to put the coffee mugs. Whether the toilet paper should roll over or under. How loud was too loud for the TV after 9 p.m., but they also figured it out. They compromised. They adjusted. They learned each other's rhythms. And slowly, the apartment started to feel like theirs. Mia loved it. She loved having Ava there in the mornings, loved that Ava made pancakes on Saturdays, loved that Ava's work stuff was scattered across the dining room table because she could not seem to keep it contained to one space. "It feels more like a home now," Mia said one night. "What did it feel like before?" Ava asked. "I don't know. Like we were waiting for something." "And now?" Now it feels like we're done waiting. Ava thought about that a lot. In November, Ava's brother called. It was the first time she had heard from anyone in her family since her mother's ultimatum, and Ava almost did not answer, but curiosity won out. "Hey," she said. "Hey," her brother David said. "I know we haven't talked in a while." 5 months. "Yeah, I'm sorry about that." "You don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything." "I didn't do anything. That's the problem." David sighed. "Look, I've been thinking about what happened with Mom and Dad, and I think they were wrong." Ava sat down. "Really?" "Yeah, I mean, they're my parents and I love them, but they were wrong. You're allowed to choose your own life, and from what I can see, you chose a pretty good one." Ava felt her eyes sting. "Thanks. I'd like to meet him, Ethan, and Mia, if that's okay." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." They met for lunch the following week, at a diner in Wicker Park. Ethan was nervous, which Ava found endearing because Ethan was almost never nervous. Mia was excited because Ava had told her David was funny and good at video games. David showed up 10 minutes late, apologizing profusely, and slid into the booth across from them. "Sorry, traffic was insane." He looked at Ethan. "You must be Ethan." "Yeah, nice to meet you." "You too." David turned to Mia. "And you're Mia?" "Yep. Ava says you're really good at soccer." "I'm okay." "She's being modest," Ava said. "She scored 3 goals last game." Mia grinned and David grinned back, and Ava felt something in her chest unclench. The lunch went better than she had expected. David and Ethan talked about work and sports and the absolutely baffling decision the Cubs had made in the last trade deadline. Mia told David about her Lego projects and her science fair idea, and Ava just sat there, watching her two worlds collide, and realized they fit together better than she had thought they would. At the end of the meal, David pulled Ava aside. "I like them," he said. "Yeah?" "Yeah. And I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner." "It's okay." "It's not. But I'm here now. If you'll let me be." Ava hugged him, and it felt like getting back a piece of herself she had thought was gone forever. Over the next few months, David became a regular part of their lives. He came to Mia's soccer games. He joined them for Sunday dinners. He even convinced Ava to host Thanksgiving, which was chaotic and loud and nothing like the formal dinners Ava had grown up with. It was better. Ava's parents did not come. She had not expected them to. But David was there, and Ethan's sister drove in from Wisconsin with her 2 kids, and Lauren showed up with wine and stories about a disastrous client meeting that had everyone laughing until they cried. Ava looked around the table, at Ethan, at Mia, at the people who had chosen to be there, and realized this was what family was supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not polished, just real. By December, Ava had been with Ethan for over a year. She could not pinpoint the exact moment everything had changed. Maybe it was the first time she stayed over and did not feel like she had to leave. Maybe it was the first time Mia called her by her name without hesitating. Maybe it was the first time she woke up in the middle of the night and felt grateful instead of afraid. But somewhere along the way, she had stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. She had stopped bracing for disaster. She had stopped believing that happiness was something she had to earn instead of something she was allowed to have. On Christmas Eve, Ethan gave her a key to the apartment. "You already have a key," Ava said, confused. "I know, but this one's official, with your name on it." Ava looked at the keychain. It was simple, just a small metal tag engraved with her initials. But it felt like more than that. It felt like proof that she belonged. "Thank you," she said, and her voice cracked. "You okay?" "Yeah, I never thought I'd have this." "Have what?" "A home. People who want me around. A life that feels like mine." Ethan pulled her close. "You've always deserved this, Ava. You just had to let yourself have it." That night, after Mia had gone to bed, and they had finished wrapping the last of the presents, Ava and Ethan sat on the couch in the dark, watching the lights on the Christmas tree blink on and off. "I've been thinking," Ava said. "About what?" "About what I want my life to look like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I want this. I want you and Mia and the mess and the fights and all of it. I want to keep showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Ethan turned to look at her. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I don't know. What do you think I'm saying? That you're all in. Ava nodded. Yeah, I'm all in. Ethan kissed her, and it tasted like relief and promise, and everything Ava had been too afraid to want. The next morning, Mia woke them up at 6, demanding to open presents. Ava stumbled out of bed, bleary-eyed and half asleep, and found Mia already sitting by the tree, practically vibrating with excitement. They opened presents slowly, savoring it. Mia got the science kit she had been asking for, and a new soccer ball, and about a dozen other things she shrieked over. Ethan got a new watch and a book he had been wanting to read. And Ava got a framed photo of the three of them from Mia's last soccer game, all of them grinning at the camera like idiots. I picked it out, Mia said proudly. It's perfect, Ava said, and she meant it. Later, while Ethan was making breakfast, Mia climbed onto the couch next to Ava. Ava, she said. Yeah, Bug. Are you going to stay forever? Ava looked at her, at this kid who had let her into her life even though she did not have to, and felt her throat tighten. I'm going to try really hard to, Ava said. Is that okay? Mia nodded. Yeah, that's okay. And just like that, Ava realized she had everything she had ever wanted. Not because it was perfect, not because it was easy, but because it was real. In the months that followed, Ava kept learning how to live a life that was not built around work. She went to therapy every week. She set boundaries with her team. She said no to things that did not matter, and yes to things that did. She started running in the mornings with Ethan, even though she hated running, because it was time they got to spend together. She learned how to braid Mia's hair, badly at first and then less badly. She hosted dinners and went to school events and showed up for the small, ordinary moments that used to feel like distractions but now felt like the whole point. She was not perfect at it. She still worked too late sometimes. She still forgot to check the school calendar and missed picture day. She still had moments where she felt like she had no idea what she was doing, but she kept showing up, and that was enough. By the time spring came around again, Ava had stopped measuring her life by the deals she closed or the recognition she received. She measured it by the way Mia ran to her after soccer practice, by the way Ethan smiled at her over morning coffee, by the way she felt when she walked through the door at the end of the day and knew she was home. One evening in April, almost exactly 2 years after she had met Ethan at that gala, Ava stood in the kitchen while he and Mia argued about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. She watched them, these two people who had let her into their lives and changed everything, and realized something she had never understood before. Success was not about building something impressive that other people admired from a distance. It was not about proving you were the smartest or the strongest or the most disciplined. It was not about control or perfection or being untouchable. Success was about building a life you actually wanted to come home to. It was about letting people see you when you were messy and flawed and uncertain. It was about choosing love even when it was terrifying. It was about showing up over and over again for the people and the moments that mattered. Ava had spent 15 years building an empire, but she had spent the last 2 years building something better, a life. And standing there in that kitchen, listening to Ethan and Mia bicker about pizza toppings, Ava finally understood what it meant to be happy. Not because everything was perfect, not because she had figured it all out, but because she had stopped trying to. Because she had let herself want something messy and complicated and real. Because she had chosen to stop hiding behind the armor of success and let herself be vulnerable enough to love and be loved. She had spent her whole life terrified of losing control, and then she met a man who taught her that control was not the same as safety, that letting go was not the same as falling, that the strongest thing she could do was admit she did not have all the answers. Ethan looked over at her and smiled, and Ava smiled back. You okay? He asked. Yeah, she said. I'm really okay. And she was. Yet, because for the first time in her life, Ava Sterling was not just successful, she was happy, and she was not going to let that go.